Anita stood frozen in the living room, the crumpled divorce letter trembling in her hands. Her breath hitched as the weight of betrayal sank deeper into her chest. She glanced at the letter, then at the family photo on the table, a snapshot of a happier time. Her voice broke the silence, trembling yet resolute. So this is how it ends. After 15 years of love, sacrifice and devotion, this is all I get. A letter? Not even the courage to face me, to tell me to my face that it's over. After everything we've been through, this is how you walk away. She took a step closer to the photo, her gaze softening as memories flooded back. Do you remember this? Our 10th anniversary. You held my hand so tightly that day, promising me forever. You said nothing could come between us. Were those just words, Eric? Did they mean nothing to you? Her voice grew stronger, fueled by the pain that simmered within her. I gave up everything for you. My career, my dreams, my freedom, all to build this life, this family. You asked me to stay home, to be your wife, your partner, and I did it with joy because I believed in us. I believed in you. She turned, her eyes searching the empty room as though hoping he might suddenly appear, that this might all be a cruel joke. When the money started coming in, that's when everything changed. At first it was subtle, the long hours, the secretive calls. I asked you, pleaded with you to tell me what I did wrong. Was I not enough? Was my love not enough to keep you grounded? Her voice cracked as tears streamed down her cheeks. But it didn't stop there, did it? You didn't just lie. You flaunted your betrayal. You brought them home, Eric. Into our house, into the space where our children sleep, where we shared dreams. Do you know how many times I've treated infections you brought home to me? Do you know the shame I've carried? The lies I've told to protect your image, to keep our family intact? She clutched the letter tightly, her knuckles white with anger and sorrow. And now this. A divorce letter. No conversation, no explanation. Just a piece of paper telling me that 15 years of my life mean nothing to you. Her voice softened, tinged with disbelief. What about James? He waits by the window every evening, hoping to see you walk through the gate. Joan, she draws pictures of you as her superhero. How do I tell them their hero has abandoned them? How do I explain to them that their father no longer wants to be part of their lives? She sank into a chair, her body trembling under the weight of her emotions. Her fingers traced the edge of the letter as her mind spiraled into the past. My parents warned me, you know. They told me not to marry you. But I loved you, Eric. I loved you so deeply that I couldn't see anything else. If only I knew then what I know now. Her eyes closed, and her trembling voice turned into a prayer. Oh Lord, my heart is heavy, and I feel so lost. The man I loved, the father of my children, has walked away, and I don't know why. But you, Lord, are my strength. You promised never to leave me nor forsake me. I hold on to that promise now. You are the God who sees, the God who saw Hagar in her despair. See me now, Lord. See my tears, hear my cries. Help me, Father, because I can't do this alone. If I failed him, show me. If I wronged him, forgive me. But if his heart has hardened, Lord, I pray you touch it. Remind him of the vows we made, the family we built, the love we shared. And if this is truly the end, give me the strength to face it. Teach me to forgive him even when it feels impossible. Help me to release the anger, the bitterness, and the pain. Let me be the mother my children need, the pillar of strength they can rely on. You are the God of restoration, the God of peace, and the God of new beginnings. Write a new chapter for me, Lord, one filled with hope, healing, and purpose. I surrender this pain, this marriage, this situation into your hands. Lead me, Father, and remind me that I am never alone. Anita opened her eyes, her tears mingling with the soft light streaming through the window. She placed the letter on the table, as though laying down a burden too heavy to carry. Rising to her feet, she wiped her face and took a deep, steadying breath. This letter doesn't define me, she whispered. Your decision doesn't destroy me. I am more than this pain, more than this betrayal. I am a mother. I am a woman of faith. And I am a daughter of the Most High God. Her voice grew firmer as she stood taller. You may have walked away, but I will not crumble. For my children, for myself, I will stand strong. I will rebuild with or without you. And I will trust that God's plans for me are far greater than anything I could ever imagine. She glanced at the family photo one last time before turning away. With each step, she carried not just the weight of her pain but the promise of her resilience. The journey ahead would be hard, but she would face it with courage and faith, determined to create a life of hope and love for herself and her children. The morning after church service, Anita was walking out of the church when a familiar voice called out, "God bless you, Anita." She turned, and her face lit up with a warm smile when she saw the couple approaching. "Beautiful couple," she greeted them kindly, her voice full of warmth. The husband, who had a look of urgency in his eyes, stepped forward and said, "Mummy, we would like to speak with you privately, just me and my wife." Anita nodded in understanding, noticing the seriousness in their demeanor. She invited them to her office, where they both sat down, waiting for her to speak. "Anita," the husband began, "I brought my lovely wife here because I see you as the best person to help her. She's struggling with her faith, and I believe your wisdom could really help her grow." His voice was sincere, but Anita could sense the underlying tension in his words. She listened intently, offering a few encouraging words about staying strong in their faith, despite the struggles they might be facing. After a brief conversation, Anita held both of their hands and prayed for their marriage and for guidance. The couple left, thanking her for her kindness, but Anita couldn't help but feel a sense of loneliness wash over her. When Anita arrived home, she was met with a sight that caused her heart to race. By the side of the bed, she saw the divorce papers that Eric had left for her. She froze for a moment, staring at the papers, unable to believe what she was seeing. "If only the people who come to me for advice knew what I'm going through," she thought bitterly. The pain was almost unbearable, and for the first time she didn't know where to turn. She felt so lost. She held her Bible in her hands, the words of comfort seeming distant. "This divorce does not define me," she whispered to herself. "I am made in the image of God. I am not a failure." The Bible felt heavy in her hands, but she knew she needed to pray. Kneeling down, Anita asked for strength and clarity, hoping for some sense of peace in the storm that was raging inside her. After praying, Anita slowly stood up and walked toward the mirror, her reflection staring back at her. She felt disconnected from the woman in the glass. "I don't recognize myself anymore," she whispered. Her once glowing face now seemed tired, worn from years of struggle. The makeup she used to wear was no longer part of her routine. She looked at the scars on her face, the ones she had been hiding for so long. "I lie about how I got these," she thought, a wave of sadness washing over her. She had told people she had fallen or that something had hit her, but the truth was far harder to face. She adjusted her glasses, which were getting larger to hide the bruises. She hadn't worn makeup in months, not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't have the energy to care anymore. The woman who once took pride in her appearance now wore the mask of a woman too tired to fight. Her thoughts drifted back to the days when Eric used to compliment her, when he was proud of her. Now, all she could feel was the weight of his rejection. She remembered the whispers of love they shared, the laughter they once enjoyed, but it felt like a lifetime ago. Anita sighed deeply, her reflection offering no comfort. The following Sunday was meant to be a day of hope, a day of healing, but Anita couldn't shake the feeling of dread. She tried her best to dress in a way that would make her feel strong, dressed in her best, the brightest color she had in her closet. But even as she looked in the mirror, she couldn't ignore the memories that came flooding back. The last time she walked into church with Eric by her side, they had held hands, whispering secrets and promises to each other during the service. Now she was alone. The empty space beside her felt like a heavy burden that she couldn't escape. As Anita walked to church alone, memories of their happier days kept invading her thoughts. She tried to push them aside, but it was impossible. She remembered the warmth of his hand in hers, the shared smiles, and the quiet moments between the hymns. How did we get here, she thought, her heart aching. The silence between them now felt louder than any words they had ever spoken. She tried to focus on the service, tried to engage with the music and prayers, but nothing could erase the pain in her chest. She had been attending church alone for months now, but it never got easier. The service that day was a mega service, full of people praising and worshiping, yet Anita felt like an outsider. She tried to lose herself in the crowd, to find comfort in the voices surrounding her, but her mind kept drifting back to the divorce papers at home. After the service, she found herself looking around, hoping to find someone who would notice how broken she felt. That was when the senior pastor approached her. His face filled with concern. "God bless you, Anita," he said with a smile. "I've noticed you've seemed a little distant lately. Are you all right?" His gentle voice was full of care, and for a moment, Anita felt a surge of emotion. She wanted to tell him everything, the pain, the loneliness, the heartbreak, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she quickly forced a smile. "Yes, Pastor, everything is fine," she said, trying to sound convincing. She didn't want anyone to know how much she was suffering. The pastor, however, wasn't convinced. The pastor took a step closer, his expression softening. "Anita, I've known you for a long time. I can tell when something is wrong," he said gently. "You've been different lately. You've been lost during the service. You don't seem like yourself." Anita's heart began to race, and she tried to hide her anxiety behind a mask of composure. "I'm fine, Pastor," she repeated, though her voice wavered slightly. "The children are doing well in school, and Eric is offshore. Everything is okay." She felt a pang in her chest as she spoke the lie. The truth was far from okay, but she didn't know how to explain it. The pastor nodded slowly, though he still seemed concerned. "I'll be praying for you, Anita," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here. Take care, and give my regards to the family." Anita nodded, forcing another smile. As she left the church, she couldn't help but feel a little lighter, but the burden still weighed on her shoulders. She had told the pastor nothing of her pain, but somehow, his kindness had offered a small flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things would get better. But as Anita arrived home, she was confronted with a sight that knocked the wind out of her. Her belongings were piled outside the house, scattered like trash. She stood frozen at the door, unsure if she should go in or just run away. Her heart pounded in her chest as she slowly stepped inside, her gaze falling on the cold figure of Eric, sitting on the couch with an air of finality. "Madam Churchgoer," Eric said, his voice dripping with contempt. "What are you doing here? You refused to sign the papers I gave you days ago, so now I have no choice. Leave. You can come in and pick up whatever you want, but you're not staying here. My new wife is coming, and you'll just be a distraction." Anita stood frozen in the doorway, her breath catching in her throat. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Was this really happening? Was Eric really throwing her out after everything they had been through? Her heart ached as Eric continued, his words cutting deeper than she thought possible. "Look at you, Anita. You're just too old now. You dress like my grandmother. Where is the woman I married? You used to be sexy, but now you're fat and out of shape. I can't keep up with you anymore. I need something fresh, something new." Every word he spoke felt like a stab to her heart, and she couldn't understand how he could be so cruel. "Eric, please," Anita whispered, her voice shaking. "You know what I've been through. The miscarriages, the complications, the C-section. My body changed, but that doesn't mean I'm not still the woman you married." She felt tears welling up, but she wiped them away quickly. "Don't do this, Eric. Please don't do this." But Eric was unmoved. "I've already moved on, Anita," Eric said coldly, his eyes avoiding hers. "I've sent you some money. Use it to start a new life. Go marry your pastor for all I care. I'm done with you." The finality in his voice crushed Anita. She couldn't understand how he could be so heartless. She reached out to him, hoping for some compassion, some sign that he still cared. But he pulled away, his face hard and unyielding. "Eric, please," Anita begged, her voice breaking. "I can't just leave like this. Please let me stay, let me fix things." But Eric was already walking away from her, his back turned as he made his way to another room. He was done. She wasn't welcome here anymore. As Anita stood there, the weight of his rejection sinking in, she felt a deep, aching emptiness. This wasn't the man she had married. The love she had once known had been replaced with cold indifference. The future she had dreamed of now seemed like a distant memory. Her heart shattered as she realized that this was the end. There was no turning back. Anita stood frozen, her heart heavy with the weight of Eric's cruel words. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The man she had loved, the father of her children, had turned into a stranger before her eyes. Her mind was in a daze as she tried to process the hurtful things he had said. She wanted to scream, to argue, to make him see the pain he was causing, but the words stuck in her throat. All she could do was stand there, feeling the emptiness that now filled the space between them. Eric's harsh tone echoed in her ears as he went on with his plans for his new life. Anita's chest tightened as she looked around the house they had once shared. The memories of the love and laughter, the days of hope and promises, now felt like ghosts haunting the rooms. The house that had been a sanctuary now seemed like a prison. She glanced at the bags outside and the mess that awaited her, and a wave of hopelessness swept over her. How did everything get so broken so quickly? As she turned to leave the room, Eric's voice cut through the silence. "I told you, Anita, you're not welcome here anymore. It's over." The finality in his words sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted to fight back, to demand an explanation, but the sight of him with his cold, emotionless expression stopped her. The fight had already left her. She felt defeated, crushed, and alone. Her eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. There was no time to cry. The children would be home soon, and she had to be strong for them. As she tried to leave, Eric grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "I said leave," he shouted. In the struggle, Anita lost her balance and fell hard. She cried out in pain but managed to push herself up, feeling desperate to get upstairs away from him.